Beautiful, Brock. Thank you. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning. And welcome to the First Universalist Church of Rochester, where we are called to nurture the spirit and to serve the community. I am Reverend Lane-Mairead Campbell. It is my privilege and my honor to serve as your settled minister here at First Universalist. I use they, them pronouns. Joining me this morning in leading worship is Patty Goodwin, our worship associate, using she, her pronouns. Reverend Michelle Yates is going to be sharing a story with us using she, her pronouns, our Minister of Lifespan Faith Development. We have on the piano today Dr. Brock Cheswold, our fabulous music director, using he, him pronouns. I know, he's just incredible. We have Jack Cunningham doing our tech work here, doing our tech assistant. Jack, you are the best using he, him pronouns. Thank you for connecting our communities. And online we have Ezekiel McGee doing our online ministry team using they, them pronouns. Ezekiel, thank you for holding that down for us this morning. You are incredible. If you are here for the first or the second or the third time, we especially welcome you. Thank you for making your way here, especially on kind of cold and dreary morning. I'm sure there will be harder mornings in the future to get here, but we're really glad that you're here this morning. Please fill out a visitor's form. There's a QR code in your order of service you can scan, or in your pews. Also for folks online, there's a link in the chat for you to get to fill out a visitor's form so we can welcome you beyond this, what we can offer you this morning during worship. After the service today, we'll have a UU session right there in the back of the sanctuary for folks online as well as in person to join us for questions, answers around what it looks like to be a part of First Universalist and a little bit about our church. So feel free to stick around after the service if you'd like. I want to just highlight one thing for you all. I don't know if you knew, but there is a big holiday coming up at the end of this week. Christmas Eve will be this Saturday, and we will be celebrating Christmas Eve here at First Universalist with a contemplative, story-based, reflective, joyful service where we're going to be celebrating some of the magic of the season. So if you're a big fan of magic, please join us. The service starts at 7 p.m. However, we have a special treat this year that we will have an extended prelude of carols and joyful music for a half an hour before our service starts, starting at 6:30. So if you like to sing, and I know this is generally a community that likes to sing, come a little early. And if you like cookies and punch, stay a little late. We'll let you decide if you're a both and kind of a person, and feel free to bring some cookies to get to share as well after the service. It's going to be really fun this Saturday at 7 p.m. Before we turn and greet our neighbors, let us take a moment to connect both our online and our in-person worshiping communities. So if you're joining us here in person, we invite you to turn towards our green camera over here where Jack is and to offer a wave to our online worshiping community. We're so glad that you're here with us this morning. So grateful that you're joining us online from wherever you are, because we know you are here from a bunch of different places. And so now we invite our folks online to please pop into the chat to offer a greeting. And if you're here in person, please just offer a greeting to your neighbor. Please rise in body or in spirit. Let's join in greeting each other. Well, dear ones, let us sing this morning. Let us sing. Let us sing. So sorry to pull you back from your conversations. I have a confession to make. If you're getting out your gray hymnal, it's the wrong hymnal this morning. I forgot a 0 when getting together our order of service this week. So our hymn is number 1063. It's in your teal hymnals if you want to follow along. In your teal hymnals, we're going to be singing a winter solstice chant. So hymn number 1063, not 163, in your teal hymnals. And of course, the lyrics will be on the screen. They're always here. And it's a nice kind of chanting. We don't do this one very often. So should we kind of play it through once, Brock? Does that sound good? And then we'll sing it together. Great. Please rise in body or in spirit and let's sing. Beautiful. Please be seated.
Tonight, at sundown, Jewish people will begin to celebrate Hanukkah. It commemorates the successful rebellion in the 2nd century BCE of the clan of Jewish freedom fighters called the Maccabees, who were fighting for the freedom to practice their faith. Despite being outnumbered, they managed to recapture the Holy Temple, the premier site of ancient Judaism. The sanctuary was in a shambles. The fighters found only enough oil to light a lantern by which to read the Torah for one day. But the lantern blazed for 8 full days. That is why the Hanukkah has places for 9 candles, 1 for each day, and the lighter candle, the Shamas. The Hanukkah is the candelabra that is used at this time of year. It has 9 places, 8 for candles for the days, and they are placed in the Hanukkah from right to left, as you would read Hebrew. But then when you light them from left to right, because you're always lighting the newest candle first. The menorah, unlike the Hanukkah, has 6 places for candles and 1 for a lighter. That's the difference. When the Jewish people lit the candles for 8 days, they recite a prayer extolling God for performing miracles. Hanukkah is also celebrated on the 25th day of the Hebrew month Kislev, during the darkest days of the year. The candle lighting on the holiday is a warm, cozy ritual to banish the winter blahs. The focus of the holiday is staying at home with family and friends. There are many religious and cultural traditions that have some ritual of lights at this time of year, which is totally understandable because the short days and long nights of December. Of course, we want light. We celebrate holidays that bring us together with family and friends. So the warmth and the light give us hope. And it is hope that helps us through the dark and steers us to the light. Come, let us worship together. As Eileen Fernandez lights our chalice at First Universalist Church, and you light a chalice in your own homes, will you join me in saying our chalice lighting words in unison? May we be a people of welcome, here to grow in heart and mind and spirit, and may we reach out to serve our community. Please rise in body or in spirit and join me in our affirmation of faith, followed by a doxology. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is prayer. To what else ever peace, to be acknowledged in freedom, to the end of all the soul, the source and the meaning of life. Let's do the honors of each other. The origin of our chalice dates back to the dark days of World War II. Its light brought hope to people who were fleeing persecution for their beliefs. We light our chalice each week. Our support for this church keeps its beacon shining, which dispels some of the darkness of the world. You are invited to give online by scanning the QR code in your pews or to drop an offering in the offering basket. For folks online, please click the link in the chat to give to First Universalist Church. Thank you for your generosity.
Our first story today is how Raven stole back the light. This is a tale from the Inuit people of Canada and of the Pacific Northwest, and I've combined elements of the story from two different books, the illustrations and the story, from Trick of the Tail by John and Caitlin Matthews and Raven by Gerald McDermott. Now, I invite you to look for some elements in this story, in so many ways being very removed from Jerusalem and Bethlehem, or even Greece with the Greek gods. There are some amazing patterns that you'll see. According to Inuit legend, Raven, the trickster, made the world and brought it light. When the world began, everyone lived on this side of the sky. But a great magician named Tupalik, or sometimes called Tupilak, was curious and decided to find out what lay on the other side of the sky. So with magic boots, he climbed up the sky and he cut a hole in the sky and climbed through. And he knew what he found there so much that he decided to build a house there and take up residence with his family. But Tupalik's wife did not like her new home. It was always dark and cold on that side of the sky. And she missed her friends and felt lonely. So Tupalik decided to cheer her up by bringing the light. He climbed back through the hole in the sky. He grabbed the sun and the moon and he stuffed them into 2 bags. And he returned to the home and he hung the bags from the roof of their house. After that, Tupalik let the light out only when he wanted to on his side of the sky, and the rest of the world spent their days in darkness. Soon, everyone on this side of the sky grew thin and pale from lack of light and food, and so they went in search of Raven, who had helped them before. Raven, they cried, someone has stolen the moon and the sun. We are dying from lack of light. Please, please, can you get the sun and the moon back for us? Raven thought hard. I'm sure Tupalik has something to do with this, he said. He flew across the world until he saw the hole in the sky and went through it. He found Tupalik dozing in the warmth of the sun, which he happened to have let out that day. Hey, Tupalik, said Raven, I want the sun and the moon back. The people are cold and dying. But Tupalik laughed and shook his head. Go away, little Raven. I need the sun and the moon to cheer up my wife. Besides, I like them too much to let them go. Raven flew off, thinking of ways to steal back the sun and the moon. And then he saw a beautiful maiden going to fetch water from the river. Raven knew she must be Tupalik's daughter. An idea flashed into his head. With a chuckle, he flew down to the river's edge and transformed himself into a tiny feather floating on the water. Filling her jug in the stream, Tupalik's daughter didn't notice when the feather floated inside. And she didn't notice when taking a huge gulp of water, the feather slipped down her throat. And a few months later, she gave birth to a beautiful baby boy with dark hair and a kind of a squawky caw-caw voice. Oh, who do you think he was? Raven in disguise. Tupalik and his wife were delighted by their grandson, not knowing where he came from and that he was actually Raven. They doted on the baby, giving him everything he asked for, and Raven made sure that he was always asking for something, yelling all day at the top of his lungs, "Gah, gah, gah, gah." One day, while Tupalik was away hunting, Raven started crying for the bags that held the sun and the moon. At first, Tupalik's wife and daughter ignored the baby, but soon they grew so tired of hearing him scream that they let him play with the bag that held the moon. When they weren't looking, Raven untied the bag and the moon flew out and vanished through the smoke hole in the roof. It bumped along the sky until it found Tupalik's hole and escaped back to our side of the world. Having seen the moon escape while he was away, Tupalik came home furious, but at the sight of his grandson, so smiling and glad to see him, he soon softened. After all, I still have the sun. The old magician settled down to sleep, and all at once, Raven began to scream and cry for the bag that held the sun. Tupalik, weary and wanting to sleep, told his wife to give the baby anything he wanted as long as it kept him quiet. Having learned from last time, though, she double knotted the bag before handing it over. Raven was unable to open it with his uncoordinated little baby hands. So as soon as she was looking the other way, Raven ran outside and turned back into his own form. The bag was still tied too tight for him to open with his claws or with his beak. So Raven took the bag and flew back through the hole in the sky, carrying the bag in his talons. Flying across the moonlit sky, as the moon had come through the hole earlier in the day, Raven grew tired and hungry. Spying some fishermen, he cried out, "Please give me some fish, and I'll let the sun out if you do." Now, Raven had been gone for so long, 9 months-ish, that the people had forgotten that they had asked him to help steal back the sun. So the fishermen were reluctant to give him anything. Raven pecked angrily at the bag, and a few bright spots of light flew out and into the sky, becoming stars. Maybe he does have the sun, the fishermen said, and so they gave Raven some food. As soon as he was strong enough, Raven tore open the bag, and the sun flew out. At first, the light blinded everyone, having gone almost a year without any sun. But after a while, they grew used to it again and threw a huge party for Raven to thank him. This is how Raven stole back the sun and gave it to the people, all the people. As for Tupalak and his family, some swear that they still live on the other side of the sky to this day, and that every now and then, about once a year, Tupalak manages to steal back the sun to his side of the sky. But clever Raven is always successful in returning it to us. And the Inuit people always throw scraps of food to Raven, grateful that he always brings back the sun.
I want to invite us now into this reverent time of sharing the joys and the sorrows of our gathered community. If you would like to, from wherever you are, you can place a hand over your heart to be able to listen from this heart-centered place, a place to connect us here in this sanctuary and online. As Patty places stones into a bowl, I will read aloud the joys and the sorrows of our gathered community. Folks online can also share them in the chat. This morning, we share a joy from Kitty Forbush, the joy of watching two of the best football games ever, Vikings and Bills. Let's go Buffalo. And then a gratitude also for Michael Scott, for Reverend Lane-Mairead, a huge soccer fan who's worshiping with us this morning instead of watching the World Cup final live. Thank you everyone who made it to church this morning. When the World Cup final is on, I hope you'll get to catch the last drips and dregs of the game. Oh, a sorrow both. Oh, I'm going for Argentina today, you know. A sorrow both from Connie and from Marty Eggers, from Connie Volka and from Marty Eggers. A sorrow for Alice Mahan, a good friend and former active member of First Universalist, who died peacefully at the age of 86 this past Wednesday. Holding Alice in blessed memory in this community and holding all who knew her and loved her, holding the sorrow. We also hold a joy this morning from Richard Reed, who yesterday enjoyed a wonderful anniversary celebration at the Baden Street Settlement House, one of our community partners, and holding their good work in our hearts this morning, the work of justice. We'll drop one stone into the bowl to represent all of the joys shared by our online worshiping community. And we'll drop a stone into the bowl for the sorrows shared there as well. And let us drop one final stone into the bowl to represent all of the joys and the sorrows and the in-betweens that reside in the silent sanctuaries of our hearts. May all be held in the heart of love this morning. Let us take a moment to just settle into our seats, to allow ourselves a deep breath, to allow our shoulders to relax from our ears, to allow our hands to relax into our laps, to sit back in our seats wherever we are, and just to enter into a moment of meditation with one another. as we pause to hold the mix of this season. In a season of merry and bright, we pause here to hold the mixture that this season brings. To hold the December blues, to hold the joy and the levity, to hold the grief and the missing, to hold the promise and the hope. Pause for a moment here to check in with your heart and mind. How are you feeling? How have you been? What is the truth of your experience today and in the days that have led to this day? In this season, we honor the missing. We miss them. Those who have been with us before, those who have died, who have left our days, who we had a falling out with, who we strayed away from. We miss them, and we hold the emptiness in our hearts without them. In this season, we honor the sadness about the state of our world, the grief we are holding, the sadness we feel in the light change and the season, the sadness of living with disappointments from the past and present day. In this season, we honor the anxiety about all we have to do and all that has to come. Sitting still undecided on who with and how to gather. In the hecticness, in the tasks, in the preparation. We honor that some of us here may be feeling anxious. In this season, we are celebrating, and we honor the celebrations, anticipating the return of the light, sharing the candles and the stories around the table, enjoying birthdays and anniversaries, holding the smiling faces we do not get to see all together too often. We hold and honor the celebrations. And in this season, we are hopeful that this too shall pass, that the levity we need will be here when we need it, that the light will return, that the sun will come back, that the oil in the lamps will last. We hold it all in prayerful, meditative hearts here, knowing that we are not alone. Finding comfort in the fact that we are not alone. May our hearts hold it all this morning. Amen. Blessed be, and may it be so. And let us join in some moments of quiet reflection together. As we come back to this space, we join in singing from our seats hymn number 391, Voice Still and Small, honoring the voice within that has so much to tell us. I'm going to ask you this morning to indulge me in another story. And this morning I have a story to share with you all that is my favoriteest, most favorite Hanukkah story of them all. I don't know if you've ever heard of this one because some folks really haven't read this one, but it's called Herschel and the Hanukkah Goblins. Has anybody ever heard this story before? Lisa's waving her hand. Yes, Michael's okay. All right, so a few of us know it, but it's about Herschel and the Hanukkah Goblins. So it's one of my favorites. All right, so just to set the scene, it was the first night of Hanukkah. Herschel of Osterpol was walking down the road, tired and hungry. He looked ahead to his arrival to the village where he would experience bright candles, merry songs, and platters full of potato latkes, one of my favorite foods. But when he arrived, the village was silent and dark. Isn't tonight the first night of Hanukkah? Herschel asked the villagers. We don't have Hanukkah, Herschel, one of them answered sadly. How can that be? It's because of the goblins. They haunt the old synagogue at the top of the hill, and they hate all things Hanukkah. Those wicked goblins make our lives miserable all year long, but on Hanukkah, it's really bad. Herschel knew he could help the village people. I know, it's a good pun, right? I'm not afraid of the goblins, he said. Tell me how to get rid of them. It's not as easy as you think, the rabbi warned. You must spend 8 nights in the old synagogue. The Hanukkah candles must be lit each night. And on the 8th night, the king of the goblins must light them himself. That's the only way to break their power. Feeling confident, Herschel headed up to the old synagogue with some hard-boiled eggs to eat and a jar of pickles, along with a Hanukkah and candles and a box of matches. It was nighttime. By the time he arrived to the old synagogue on the hill, he placed 2 candles on the menorah and set it on the windowsill. He struck a match and lit the shamash candle. He said the blessings and was about to light the other candle when he heard a voice. Hey, what are you doing? Herschel turned around and there was a goblin no bigger than a horsefly, with a long pointy tail and 2 bat's wings hovering in the air. "I'm lighting Hanukkah candles," Herschel said. "Tonight is the first night of Hanukkah." The little goblin explained that they hated Hanukkah and it wasn't allowed around here. "Is that so?" said Herschel. "Who's going to stop me, a little pipsqueak like you?" "I may be little, but I'm strong and the goblin." "Really?" Herschel said. "Can you crush rocks in your hands?" And Herschel reached into his pocket and he took out the boiled egg and crushed it in his hands. The goblin was taken aback and absolutely wanted to be left alone. Herschel agreed that he would leave the goblin alone if he could light his candles in peace. And the little goblin left with the threat of even bigger goblins and badder goblins to come in the evenings ahead. On the second night, a larger goblin did in fact come by and attempt to stop Herschel from lighting the second candle. Herschel stopped him by feeding him pickles from the jar he had brought and offering more from his jar, holding it out for the goblin to stick his fist into. And when he tried to grab all the pickles, his jar got stuck, or his hand got stuck in the jar. The goblin thought this was horrible magic and left Herschel alone for the second night. On the third night, Herschel tricked a very greedy goblin out of a bunch of his gold by playing dreidel with him, spinning the old top. Each time the dreidel landed on a new Hebrew letter, the goblin had to give over more and more gold, especially with the edited way Herschel had shared the rules. The goblin left defeated and still hating Hanukkah, but Herschel was able to light the Hanukkah candles for the third night. Goblins came each night, and each night Herschel tricked them all. Pretty ugly, right? Pretty ugly goblins. And then that fateful night came. On the 8th night, when the king of goblins arrived, it was the last night of Hanukkah. Herschel set the candles in the menorah, but instead of placing it in the window, he put the menorah, the Hanukkah, and the box of matches on a small table near the door. Then he sat down to wait. Night fell, and it grew dark as pitch inside the old gloomy synagogue. Outside, the whole cold world lay silent. Suddenly, a great gust ripped the synagogue door from its hinges. The whole building shook. A fearsome voice spoke, "Herschel of Osterpol." Did I hear something? "It is I, the king of the goblins." Herschel laughed. "Don't be silly. You're one of the boys from the village. You're just trying to scare me." "I am not a boy. I am the king of the goblins." "I'll believe it when I see it. Show yourself to me." "Behold, I stand before you. Do you believe me now?" Herschel tried not to look, because even in the darkness, he could see the outline of a monstrous shape filling the doorway, a figure too horrible to describe. He pretended not to care. "It's too dark. I can't see anything. A candlestick and some matches are by the door. Won't you light a few candles? Then I'll see who you really are." "Indeed you shall." A match struck and the shamash candle was lit. And when Herschel saw the king of the goblins, it was a terrible sight, and he began to pray. But he faced his fears and encouraged the king of the goblins to light all the candles so he could better see him and they could see each other. "Now, Herschel, do you know who I am?" "I know you're not Queen Esther." "Very funny. Enjoy the joke. It will be your last." That's what you think, said Herschel. Begone, or I will take a stick to you. How dare you speak to the king of the goblins that way? I'll speak to you any way I please. You have no power. Your spell is broken. See, the menorah is lit. You thought those were ordinary candles you were lighting. They weren't. They were Hanukkah candles, and you lit them yourself. The king of the goblins roared with fury. The earth trembled, and a mighty wind arose. It ripped off the synagogue roof and blew down the walls. Around the menorah, the whirlwind howled, but the candles never flickered. They burned with clear, steady flames. The king of the goblins had no power over them. The spirit of Hanukkah had triumphed. The great wind vanished as suddenly as it had risen. Herschel rubbed his eyes. The night was as still as before, even though the synagogue was gone. But the menorah remained, standing tall upon the little table where Herschel had placed it. Herschel waited until the last candle burned out. Then he started down the road that led to the village. I'd better hurry, he thought. I don't want to miss the last night of Hanukkah. But there was no reason to worry. In every window there stood a menorah with 9 gleaming candles to light the way. The whole village was waiting for him. The end. Now, thank you all for indulging me in a little story, because I'm kind of interested in what both Raven and Herschel have in common with one another. Both are the heroes of the story, obviously, right? Both had to use trickery to get what they wanted. Both had to have the best interests of the people at heart. And both lied and even joked around in order to restore ritual. Much needed, important, seasonal ritual to their communities. Both said yes when they were asked to help. To me, the reason we need the trickster in this time of year is that we are all in need of a good laugh. Things get way too serious when it gets dark out. Following the seasonal patterns of our ancestors, when it gets dark out, the harvest has ceased and the fears set in about how we will make it through the winter. And perhaps the trickster is here because we are all in need of witnessing things from a different perspective. Perhaps at this time of year, when the return of the sun comes in our coldest months, we need the trickster to turn our world upside down, to see where we might have been helpful when we were being deceiving, to see what can be accomplished when the good of the people is at the heart and mind of ourselves rather than just the good of the individual. The trickster spans cultures and traditions, right? Just like the observances celebrating the return of the year, I imagine we can all bring to mind tricksters that we know about from our own cultures, from stories out of the cultures of others. These tricksters often go up against oppressive forces or even just threats to livelihood. The trickster can use humor, humility, strength, voice, and actions to convince. What is important is that they know who they are talking to and that they move with intention. This archetype is not solely about manipulation for the sake of tricking others, but of seeing where trickery is needed to gain resources back that have been stolen, to bring back the sun, to light the candles in the ways one's traditions call for. It feels in these dreary weather days that it will take a deep form of trickster energy to bring about a return of the sun, to help the days grow longer, to remember it won't always be this dark. This week, we look ahead to the winter solstice on Wednesday, where some stay up late or wake up really early to celebrate the return of the sun. We look ahead, of course, to the 8 nights of Hanukkah, where families gather in their homes to light candles and play games and sing songs and share the old stories. We do these things out of the hope that the sun will return, that there will be enough oil to light the lamps, that joy can be found even when it is dark. A hope we sometimes have to trick ourselves into here in Western New York. What are the rituals that hold hope for you in this season? I know we have some folks here who take part in Hanukkah, of course. I imagine for most of us, our days shift and look different in the wintertime. Are there stories you return to? Tales you grew up with or ones you learned along the way that help make sense out of this time of year? Family stories that touch your heart or make you laugh or remind you of a time when you felt joy? Are there daily practices that hold you in these darkening days? Resting, reading, meditation, prayer, cooking, movement, something else I'm not thinking of in this moment. We would not need the trickster to restore the rituals if they always came easy. Sometimes they fall away. And we need a reminder like this through story to remember what we need in our days. What I love the most about both Herschel and Raven is that they said yes when an opportunity came along to help and to be of service to the people around them. Yes. Yes, I will travel to the other end of the world to bring back the sun. Yes, I will stay in this creepy synagogue with these goblins to restore Hanukkah to this village. Yes, I will sacrifice my time and energy. Yes, I will transform for a time and play the long game because what I am doing matters. Again, these yeses were backed up by knowing who they were helping and keeping the good of the community first in their minds and hearts. They did not say yes to every offer that came along from others, but they said yes when it counted and they committed to their yes. In this season, there are so many things that we can say yes to. And I really want to encourage you to be discerning about where you say yes. And to know that when you do it, it is worth knowing why and worth knowing who benefits from our yes. The joy and the hope comes from when we feel clear about why we offer ourselves to others to a worthy cause. And our community and our world are so deeply in need of a clear and considered yes, of our clear and considered yeses. In this solstice season, may you embrace some of the ways of the trickster, finding laughter and joy where it can be found, restoring ritual and saying yes when it counts. On this first night of Hanukkah, may the stories and the songs come easy to you, and may the candles be lit without a hitch. In this returning of the sun, may we all remain hopeful that the light will come back and embrace the rituals that help us in times when the light's return does not seem possible. Amen. Blessed be, and may it be so. And let us sing joyfully, right? We need some of that this morning. I love Light One Candle. I love when we get to sing it. We get to sing it but one time a year. So let's go ahead and join in singing Light One Candle 221 in your gray hymnals if you'd like. The lyrics will be up on the screen. Please rise in body or in spirit and let us join in singing together. just love that one. All right, please remain standing as we extinguish our chalice flame and as we read our chalice extinguishing words together. We extinguish this flame, but we keep its light in our hearts with its message of love and justice, taking it outside these walls to the world we live in until we are together again. Dear ones, I want to invite you from wherever you are to place a hand over your heart once more and to just take a look around at who is with you. If you're online, turn your view to gallery view so you can see who's here. If you're here in person, just take a look around the room. See who is here with you along this journey. Let us be reminded that the hope of this season is found in the light of one another's faces. Let us be reminded that the hope of this season is found in the rituals, in the joy, in the laughter. I'm wishing you this weekend and the days to come some trickster energy, hoping that you will be maybe playing some pranks on the people next to you. And just wishing you all a beautiful Hanukkah, a wonder-filled solstice, a remembrance that the light will return. And may you know the light within. May you know within yourself that you are loved. And may you go and be that love to whomever you meet. Amen. Blessed be, and may it be so.
This song is number 118 in your hymnal. So please join along with me. You'll know it.